It's time to finish out our round of 16 here in Austin, Texas. We're live with the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series, Day 2. I'm Nathanius, and we have one final match to bring you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined on the desk by Rotterdam and Fear Dragon as we see if the last non-European player can make it to the top 8, or will it be an all-European finish, Roddy?
I mean, I think we're all expecting the American to advance here. And the American, of course, talking about the Mexican Terran player SpeCial. They had a very big series against each other just a couple of months ago over in South Korea back then. And we all looked at it and back then said, like, Bly has no chance against SpeCial. And suddenly, Bly was up 2-1 against SpeCial in that big tournament, the Intel Extreme Masters, Pyeongchang in South Korea. But SpeCial did turn that around. He won that series, but that just comes to show that playing a best-of-5 against Bly is never easy, no matter how big of a favorite you are.
I mean, I feel as though it's always coming back to the same sort of logic that a lot of people would say versus someone like Neeb, where you say Neeb is the one sort of flaw is that sometimes he's a little set in his ways, and we've seen that kind of come back to bite him in the butt. And I feel as though whenever you have someone that's set in their ways facing off versus someone like, say, Bly, who loves to get aggressive, he loves to get cheesy, he loves to get in your face, those are the kind of players that can actually start causing those upsets.
And we're going to take a look at the bracket as we continue our discussion here of this matchup. Of course, you guys make excellent points. The winner of this series will play against a laser, but that is our current top 8 as it stands, rounded out very nicely. We have one Terran in the top side, we have a Protoss in the bottom, and now to find out if we will have a second Terran player in SpeCial. In Control told me he was crunching the numbers. He said if SpeCial manages to advance, then there will be 7 Europeans and 1 non-European. So thank you, Control, for those numbers out there.
How long did it take him to crunch those numbers?
You know, he told me that he perceives time in a 4th dimension that I can't comprehend, and I couldn't repeat whatever he said. It was not in English.
But Nate, what percent of North Americans would there be if it's 1 out of 8?
I'm not doing math on stream. Roddy.
12.5?
There you go. So we are going to talk a little bit about SpeCial, okay?
Well, it took you a long time.
I have no idea.
He puts me on the spot.
He asks questions he
numbers.
doesn't know the answer to. We have SpeCial. He's come so close to making it to the end of these tournaments in 2017. His Achilles heel was always Neeb. He'd run into Neeb. Neeb would swat him down, and Neeb's like, I'm going to win the tournament now. But this is an opportunity where he will not have to face off against Neeb if he can continue his way forward.
Yeah, it was really funny, right? Because the entire story of 2017 was like, can SpeCial finally overcome Neeb? Because Neeb was always defeating him. And then when SpeCial did finally take care of Neeb over in Valencia, then Snoot suddenly showed up. It's like, I really appreciate that effort, but now I'm going to advance to the finals.
I don't have to play against
I'm going to let you
Snoot,
finish, but I think that I am one of the greatest players.
Let's quickly touch on Bly. He's been one of the longest-term competitors. He is someone who is an online grinder as well. He is in so many of these tournaments and infamous for his arsenal of aggressive strategies. I think we couldn't have had a better fun fact about him. He catches people off guard nonstop.
Yeah, ZvT also definitely has a lot of potential for a lot of those aggressive strategies. I mean, we even saw earlier just yesterday, Scarlet kind of employing some of those aggressive strategies, a lot of the kind of Ling, Baneling, Hydra, or sorry, not Ling, the Roach Ravager aggression and stuff that you can do versus Terran players can also be a little frustrating to deal with for Terran.
And I'll get your thoughts in a second. We are ready to introduce the players on the stage. Smix is ready to kick off the final match of the evening, aren't you?
I am indeed. It is the final round of 16 match of the day. One last time, Austin. Are you ready? Let's bring the players out. It is Bly and SpeCial.
And Terran and Azurg shake hands on their way to find out who will be the last quarterfinalist here at WCS Austin. Bly with over 9,000 tournament games played.
9,000?
Yes, over 9,000 tournament matches played. Bly is a beast, and we of course know SpeCial, formerly known as Major. He's the guy that wins everything in Latin America. He's a plague on Kelzer, and he is the player that always comes out. He is, generally speaking, the contender for non-Korean Terrans.
Yep. No, I think he earns that title, and he has deserved the title of being the best Terran player outside of Korea for definitely the last year and a half. Every now and then we're like, oh, Utermo's looking really good, and right now I think Hero Marine is really looking mighty fine. but SpeCial still deserves the title. I mean, he made it to the semi-finals of the global finals last year, and overall he just looks really good. And every now and then, like, I mean, recently nation-wise, right, SpeCial is always good, but sometimes he's just incredibly, ridiculously good. However, it doesn't really matter. Even if you can play a fantastic game against a Zerg, someone like Sul, for instance, Bly is just so different, where every Zerg will say, like, you really need these upgrades, or you need to be that. Bly plays the game in his own ways. He sees the game in his own way, has a lot of really crazy builds, but sometimes he also plays rather standard, but then he just avoids some of the crucial upgrades. But because he does that, his attack hits faster. He does weird stuff. I've seen him do like Nidus attacks, as you only see like in a cinemation trailer. It's like, Nidus here, Nidus there, units pop everywhere, and suddenly it's like, this is actually working. This makes no sense at all. So I think this is going to be a pretty explosive series, but I mean, SpeCial is a pretty big favorite.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, because, you know, SpeCial has been spending so much time in Korea, and one of the biggest things that he gets always told is he plays like a Korean Terran, and I feel like that's a really high compliment, because Korean Terrans are really good. But when you talk about who he's probably playing against, he's not playing against anyone like Bly, like Roddy is saying. There's not many people that would play like him in Korea. None of the Korean Zergs tend to play that sort of style. So this is maybe going to be, again, one of those things that are a little bit outside of his comfort zone, but I still feel, even despite all that it's still going to be a big favoritism for SpeCial.
Yep, Twitch chat agrees with you, Fear Dragon.
Well, they're all GMs, so.
Yeah, they've got your back.
I was actually just reading Twitch chat before this, and I was like, okay, what are they saying?
I'm sure a lot of very high-level intellectual discussion of StarCraft 2's finer mechanics and strategies.
In much more eloquent language than I could ever use.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you guys for bringing that up. I personally like seeing SpeCial because I think his build variety is really good. Players aren't ready just yet, but I love seeing the mech builds that SpeCial can bring out. He'll also play bio. He has a lot more range, I feel, than a lot of the non-Korean Terrans. Maybe I would match him with Thermal, who will mix it up more than some others. Kellozer brought some fresh builds, but couldn't quite, take the execution, of course, to beat someone like Cyril.
Now, Bly is all over the place, and that's kind of the beauty of Bly. We know that he loves his Nidus all-ins. We know that he can even Baneling boss and weird stuff like that, or pretend he's playing macro and then roaches and queens run to the other side of the map. A proxy hatchery is very possible when you when you look at a best of 5 and when you're looking at Bly as well. But I think what's more scary is the games where it seems like he's playing normal, but he's never truly playing normal. Like I said, he will suddenly play like Hydra Bane without any evolution chambers, but because he skipped the evolution chambers, those units come out a little bit faster, and he suddenly has a few more than you normally expect. And in general, we don't recommend people to play StarCraft like that,
Yeah.
but if you can truly find those tiny windows, that's why he's scary. And I'm sure that SpeCial, he looks at it and he's probably like, okay, I'm playing against Bly, that's nice. But at the same time, it's like, is it though? Because you're always a little bit worried, but I think in the end, this is a good draw for SpeCial.
All right, thank you very much for your insight, gentlemen. It is time to kick off the final best of 5 of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for SpeCial versus Bly.
The Ukraine versus Mexico here. A big Terran versus Zerg match to round out day number 2 of the WCS Austin Circuit Championship. It's going to be an action-packed one, a best of 5 to see who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, we need some good games here. These guys are both crazy. SpeCial is the favorite, but can Bly make an upset here?
We're going to have to find out, of course, up here in the top left-hand side of the map in the blue. Representing Team Expert, it is Bly. One of the more creative and aggressive Zergs out there. He has played more than 9,000 tournament games. A big online grinder, and another guy down here who's been around for a long time. In the last few years, he's really come into his own element as a Terran powerhouse. In the red, it is SpeCial. A lot of Terran fans out there, and a lot of fans of him especially. It's so cool to see after many years of, I think, SpeCial being that guy where we're like, he's really good and he's a great practice partner. Didn't really see him perform as well at LAN events. In the last year and a half, it's been like, no, he is one of the very best in the circuit.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It's hard. It's hard to get those results offline. Traveling beyond your comfort zone for him from Mexico, it's not an easy trip as well, as you know, as an Australian. So
yeah.
It is the harder path, but he's been able to do it. He's been consistently placing very well. I like what the guys at the desk said. He's kind of notably probably the Terran outside of Korea. We've had a few others kind of step up, but consistently throughout the WCS, it's been SpeCial. But this is a tough test. I mean, Bly, and I like what Robbie was saying too, you don't really play against guys like a Bly. And that's, you kind of go back to the Cannon Rush example. When you get Cannon Rush, that person's been doing it a ton of times. So the different scenarios, different things that happen, they're familiar with it. for you, it's like 1 of 5 games. Well, every time you play Bly, it's kind of that experience. Like, I've been cheese before, but this kind of cheese is getting weird.
Exactly. You know, a lot of the time people simplify it down a bit and they think, well, why don't you just play safer if you know they're going to play aggressive? But it all comes down to timing. Almost gets the surround there. If you end up playing overly safe early on, you just end up behind in the economy. StarCraft is a game of balancing many different factors. You know, you've got to balance your economy with the amount of units that you build to stay safe. And talk about staying safe. Very nice micro there from SpeCial. Cleans up the 4 Zerglings without losing anything.
Of course, 4 Zerglings not a super big deal, but to do it without any loss is a nice little edge there. And you know, as you were saying that, Pig, I can't help but to think of my good buddy Idra. One of my favorite quotes from him is the cheesiest thing a cheeser can do is to not cheese at all. And now, I do agree with the assessment that Bly is probably never going to not cheese in some way or another, but to your point, if it's just like skipping Evo chambers and having a beefier Hydrolink mainling, it's hard to make that read. And if you make the wrong read and try and take a third that normally would be okay and you're playing really safe, all of a sudden you get cracked down, you're in a lot of trouble. So that's the kind of stuff SpeCial's got to kind of mentally navigate to make his way through this series.
Absolutely, and navigate it he will have to indeed. This is Redshift. Funnily enough, SpeCial's actual map choice for Game 1. A lot of players might be a bit surprised by that, but it's actually very good for Terran versus Zerg. Is it good for Terran versus Bly, though? A lot of people would be pretty afraid of it because he's so good on these weird maps. The gold base, though, definitely not going to give any boost to the Zerg, and we see SpeCial not being risky. He's not extending himself trying to get his gold either. So this will play out in a more regular, straightforward way.
Yeah, I have to say, I think when you kind of consider the maps, as far as weird maps go, this is pretty straightforward. The gold bases are very exploitable, so if you go take it, speaking of which, it's actually going to be SpeCial that's going to take that gold base first. The other side of that means you can kind of have your way with it. It's not a huge, oh, they have the gold base, there's not much you can do about it kind of situation, but also it's a very up-down map, right? So if you can kind of get Bly into a situation where it's like, I know where your army's coming from. If I scout well enough, I'll also know what your army is. I feel like SpeCial can just out-mechanic in that situation and win.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal here. This sort of scenario, it's about dodge any of those crazy moves that Bly can pull out.
Speaking of.
Try to push it deeper and deeper. Zerglings entering the production tab. A Roach Warren getting very close to done, and a lot of Overlords coming up. He's already at 55 out of 98, and he's building 3 more Overlords. Yeah, is he planning to build like 30 Roaches here?
He's just hitting the gas, and if it's not going to be a Nidus Worm, then it's going to be straight up, I think, Ravager Ling, or maybe Roach Ling, I guess, of course, with Ravagers. He just now scouts and sees that it is going to be a starport, which does mean there's not going to be a lot of units, but the Banshee's got to pose some kind of weird problem for you as well. It can just kind of rain down one-way destruction. So I guess Bly's just counting on the fact that he can overwhelm him.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to that thing where it's like, I have a Banshee, you can't shoot that, I'm safe. But sometimes the Zerg can just be like, well, if I sneak out like 20 Roaches and you don't see it till it gets to your base, the Banshees don't really matter because by the time they clean up my army, all of your workers will be gone. And we see a lot more Roaches queuing up here. It's about these Queens trying to zone out the Banshee, but with no detection up yet, SpeCial is going to fly in. He already sees a few Roaches coming out. Doesn't focus fire quite right. Only going to grab 1 or 2 drones before that Spore Crawler does finish. But I think he's already got a decent idea that there is something aggressive coming his way.
Well, I hope so, because it is just Lings out behind that. There's the Ravagers being morphed there as well in the middle of the map, and the brunt of this force has not been spotted, so it has to be like the perception. There's still 3 SCVs queued up. Tanks coming out here. I love the little shave of Lings there to pick off the scout, kind of furthering the cause that maybe SpeCial doesn't know what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, right now, it's just a bunch of unupgraded Marines. He doesn't even have a full wall. There are so many Roaches and Ravagers about to launch in. The Cyclone exposed up front goes down almost instantly. Yeah, there's a lot of SCVs to repair, but look at the corrosive bile. The bunker just falls almost immediately.
And Stim is just about to finish, but it's going to be tragically late after the battle has happened. SpeCial falling a little bit behind Spy. Of course, as I say that, actually a big front of the Zerg force did go down. The Banshees come back over, and this is getting cleaned up. Some economic damage has been done, but even then, it's not that big of a deal. Army supply is severely in favor of SpeCial. He has held, and he has the gold base behind this.
I mean, that's the big thing, isn't it? I feel like a single Ravager or Roach over here could really disrupt mining, but you know that's a sacrifice. The Banshees will clean that up for free. And SpeCial bouncing back from that says, you know what, I'm down 10 workers with 3 mules dropping at a time. I don't care at all. He has actually defended that with flying colors.
Yeah, that's a really important fact that Pig just pointed out there. The 3 orbitals in and of itself is a big deal, but the fact that one's on the gold is gigantic. So now Bly's going to fall back on his default option, but it's important to note, actually, just now the gold base is being spotted by whatever is over there. I think he had the tower, so Maybe you saw it a little bit earlier than that, but that is a huge, huge issue because if you don't put roaches over there, which is just now doing, you're not stopping that at all.
Yeah, and you know what? Special says, hey, you've got to go home and defend this drop. Bly not able to deny mining on that gold just yet. He's finally got a roach down there, but at the same time, there is a double drop in his base. A few Marines going to defend the gold mineral line, and there is nothing in the main base. A massive amount of damage coming down.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, this is kind of the byproduct of when you're all in doesn't really work out. You kind of have to go in on drones or just make more units. It's not a great place to be. Drop like this shows up, and there's not much you can do about it. The Queens are going to come over here. And these Marines are getting a little bit exhausted off all that stim. They're actually going for the lair. Is he going to get it?
Changes targets for the Queens there. He says, you know what? Yeah, why take one thing when you can take them all? Why not both?
Oh, wow. Gets the hatch.
Wow.
I mean, the lair as well. And then behind this, as Pig pointed out, the Banshees are perfect for defending that gold base. The bad gets worse. So Supply, of course, painting the story here that Special is way up. But just situationally, everything Bly had, I feel like, really came down to that attack. He's sticking it out in this kind of the Bly way. I feel like part of this might be to get the butterflies out or whatever, but he really is, he's pretty dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't argue with that one, Jeff. Bly is a player who stays in there. We often see him kind of down to 30 workers and still trying to make Broodlords work on like 2 bases because, you know, there's always a chance your surprising tech does win a game where you're far behind. If you play a sort of kind of very tech-based style like Bly does, where it's about surprising your opponent, sometimes a comeback can happen. That's definitely not what you want for that to start off there. Special all over it, man.
I mean, that looked like a huge mistake, and it was, but these are forced errors. He was kind of looking at the medevac drop going up towards the main, and it cost Bly about 12 to 13 of his roaches there, which is a huge chunk of his army.
Yeah.
Special has got to smell blood in the water. We can see his army supply is 91 to 33. He's just scored victory after victory, and I think he's circling here for the W.
Funnily enough, he has forgotten his 2-2 upgrades, which would take it from nail in the coffin to gigantic stake in the coffin. Yeah. It's still going to be more than enough since there are no upgrades for Bly, but he's just going to push on in here, start to focus fire down those roaches. The Marines, when they focus all of their firepower, the roaches just disappear. And Special going to pull up and pull back for now.
Yeah, another trade there. Banshee's going to make their way into the main base. Keep in mind, there is no Hydras, there's no Mutas, nothing like that, so it's kind of Queens waddling back and forth between all the bases. Now, Bly is trying to take that 4th base, and worker-wise, he's not too terribly far behind, but it's just that army supply I keep looking over at. And this is kind of cool because Special, a little bit of a throwback to the Spoon Terran, the Swedish Terran Thorzane. It's like not one big final push, but a whole lot of little ones to kind of make sure the victory is just a reality.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you do it here against this sort of player. You know, if you're playing like a Snoot or something, someone who's so economy focused, his decision to get back in the game is always going to be to hold down the drone key and be like, build drones. But you know Bly is going to keep building units and kind of looking for the more aggressive or techie way of getting back in the game. Special just ekes that one out after a very decisive early game. The Banshees to defend the gold base. Great defense of that Ravagerling attack and a very clean Game 1 victory.
Yeah, I was going to kind of say, Pig, so, I mean, you're a fantastic Zerg player as a former professional Zerg player yourself. That attack was looking good for a second. The Corrosive Vials cracked open the bunker. There didn't seem to be that many Marines, but what was kind of the key to the defense there for Special?
I think Special's Marine production did not miss a beat. Like, just mechanics-wise, I was not expecting someone who's opened up kind of with the Banshees, the pretty fast 3rd command center, to have so many Marines, but it was like, okay, this attack's almost there. He's got like maybe 10 Marines. Then suddenly there's another like 6 Marines there. There's more Marines popping out during the fight. And the way he pulled the SCVs to buffer on the ramp, there was a little bit, I'm not sure if he was doing like the hold position micro where you kind of block the units, but he just kind of kept everything clumped very well. And it seemed like the Zerglings weren't really able to concentrate their damage output. You know, once the Zerglings are gone, Roaches and Ravagers aren't really that high damage unit. He dodged most of the Biles after the bunker went down. And I guess the Banshees came in on the rear of that. Once the Zerglings are gone, the Zerg just wasn't able to get the damage. I think it was 20 workers died there. But apparently he needed to kill about 40 to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, and he was only down 10, and like we were kind of talking about, had that gold base, but it's got to be a little bit of a scary moment there for Bly, who on this kind of smaller size map goes for this all-in, and it wasn't like a reactionary all-in, like, oh, you're doing that thing, I'm going to do this. It very much so felt like something he went into this with the game plan, but he's facing triple orbital cloaked Banshee, which means you're not going to have any units at all, and still could not crack Special.
I guess the other point would be maybe if there's a single roach at the gold during that attack, right? I mean, you think about it, you're like, okay, you know, this attack's happened. Seems like it's over in a flash. Realistically, a minute of a full gold-based mining that could be denied could have been the difference that changed it up. Wasn't the case in game number 1, but there's at least 2 more games to go. He's got a few more shots ahead of him. Up here, guys, in the top right-hand side of Lost and Found, the Blue Zerg, representing Team Expert. He is Bly.
And the opponents, lower left-hand side, scoring first blood in that first match from Mexico, it's SpeCial. SpeCial looking concentrated and good. We've had a lot of blowouts yesterday and even today. So is this going to be the match that gets more competitive, or is it going to be kind of another day of just building up for these dogs, these monsters that are just crushing everybody right and left?
Yeah, it's definitely been a day with quite a few 3-1s and some 3-0s sliding in there, and that personally gets me so excited for tomorrow, because I always feel like tournaments come in these waves. You have a day where there's a few matches which are a little bit one-sided, and that just tells you the next day when those Titans face off against each other, that's where the matches get super intense. So definitely going to be an exciting final Sunday tomorrow. But Bly definitely wanting to make this series nice and close. The last time these guys faced off was in the Intel Extreme Masters Pyeongchang. He managed to take that one down. SpeCial did 3-2.
Yeah.
But it was a closer series than people expected there. You know, people were touting SpeCial as one of the favorites to kind of take the tournament out, and he almost lost to the Ukrainian Zerg. So definitely not unheard of for Bly to take a few maps.
You know, just to play my kind of pseudo armchair psychologist moment here, I feel like Bly is a really, really scary opponent when he gets ahead of you in this series, because then those risks that he takes are just that much more dangerous. But when he falls behind, I mean, it's just one game at a best of 5, so there's another bullet in the chamber for sure, but it just feels like a little bit of the edge is taken out, because he's just one bad choice away from being terminally out of this match, or just in so much trouble. And of course that gets worse and worse as the series goes on. So for me, I feel like SpeCial looks really good. He already put down 1 cheese. As long as he can kind of maintain that level, I think Bly is going to be ineffective here.
Yeah, we saw SpeCial just wants to scout, he wants to defend, he wants to expand, and then he wants to just pick away at Bly. Death by 1,000 cuts in that first game. Here on Lost and Found, a rather straightforward map. It is Bly's map pick, so a map he's going to be a little bit more comfortable on than Redshift, and is going for that quick third base. SpeCial going to be opening up with Hellions. Rather straightforward opening, and I'm sure SpeCial is quite happy it isn't like a gas pool or anything where anything too crazy can come out too early on. He's just gonna be kind of like dealing with a few Zerglings, trying to slow down the creep, and a bit of back and forth micro, but nothing too crazy.
Nothing too crazy, but I will, just as a small note, it is odd for the Zerg to be losing Lings like Bly has the last couple of games. It's not like I'm about to give this big speech about how it leads to the third base being 17 minutes late or something like that, but it's a little bit of map control, it's a little bit of loss, it's just not very good. And that's also kind of what you get with Bly. Bly's a little bit more of the messy kind of player where the games get chaotic and he still wins those. So again, it's not the biggest of deals, but keep your eye on it.
Curious to see, with all this droning going on, if Bly does choose to play his kind of single upgrade Massling Bane style, where he kind of techs up with Infestors. Sometimes does do that style where he just plays single Evo all game and plays like this kind of bizarre macro game where he just has a larger Ling Bane army. And if you kind of get out of position, he can pounce on it. But Fast Lair, Roach Warren, and a second gas. If a third gas goes down, I would put my bet on a Nidus Worm. Definitely one of the options if you're going to be opening up with Roaches.
Third base so far not being saturated at all. We did see SpeCial kind of move out here with even another pair of Hellions for a total of 4. Keep your eye on that, because paired up with the Banshee, you can get kind of deadly pretty quick. Nice scouting. Zergling here gets to the top of that ramp. It does see the tech lab on that starport. Saw it blinking and churning, so at this point in time, that really only means one thing, and that's going to be Cloak Banshee.
Yeah, we are going to see a third gas now starting up, but no extra queens for Bly. So, Bly going to play a low queen style, which means I think a pack of Roach is going to come out and probably going to be going and looking for a big Roach speed push. Nidus one does go down. Okay.
Called it, Pig.
I mean, I was like, he's not going to do that now. It'll be later than normal, but it looks like he's going for a slightly delayed one. Oh my gosh! Nice queen block.
Very nice queen block, and actually just kind of messing up the control of the Hellions at the top of this ramp. And now he's just kind of forgotten about them as well. So no damage done to the expansion, or excuse me, the workers.
Yeah.
And he did not see the Nidus Worm either, did he?
Dude, I don't think he did.
Well,
who knows if he clicked on that though, because he's microing
he
so
saw it,
hard.
but did he see it?
Yeah, I mean, right now the Banshee is going home. There's another
saw
Banshee.
it.
There's a tank. There's a okay. Yeah, when there's a bunker behind your factory, I think you know
saw
there's a
it,
Nidus
yeah.
Worm on the way. He hasn't actually spotted where it's popping from, but he's got 2 Cyclones and a Banshee. You almost don't even want to unload into that. That's actually such a huge amount of damage output.
I feel like it's one of those crazy situations, though, where it's like folding kings if you sense aces. You know, it's so hard to not go for this. So here we go. He's going to push out. The tank is sieging up behind that. The bunker.
Oh, man.
They're still getting 2 Marines as well.
If there's one thing you can never break in a scenario, it's a siege tank wedged behind the production with something in front of it. Roaches and Queens literally cannot squeeze past that bunker. It is an absolute death zone. We're gonna need to see some very creative use of these units to get out of this. Bly immediately drops an infestation pit behind it. I think he's gonna go for some swarm hosts.
And Evo Chamber, like you called out earlier as well. So I think this is just a feint at this point in time. Now, savvy enough, we see Specialists still making SCVs. A lot of Zergs, excuse me, Terrans in this situation might freak out and think that they can't be producing something like that, but he still is. The attack's not over. That's the fun thing about Bly. He's like, am I done attacking, or is this actually an all-in?
Hey, I've got some creep tumors in your main base. I can drop some biles, you know. He's trying to just keep his position there. Threatening, does take down 1 siege tank. No, doesn't land the 3rd bile. And a lot of the Ravagers have already fallen. One of the Queens goes down without a transfuse. Banshee's on the counterattack doing damage as well. Bly getting shoved into this corner of the map. And at this point, SpeCial is just saying, you know what? This attack, I don't even care about it anymore. He can move out and take his 3rd base. SpeCial can get his production rolling again. He's looking very healthy.
Yeah, and you were saying this earlier, but the low Queen count means that it's this base is actually kind of in danger of dying. Finally, the Queens get over here and scoot that attack away, but the Hatch is at half health. I don't necessarily think SpeCial's going to push out with anything that can endanger that 3rd base, but let's talk about that for a second. It is just a 3rd base. There's the Hive. So, you know, the weird gets weirder here. This is not very usual at all.
I feel like SpeCial's taking a leaf out of Rhett's book right now. For any people who are fans of the old school player, 87 out of 149 supply.
That's a lot.
Has a few extra supply depots. Maybe expected that rush to get a little bit messier. Unfortunately, a Banshee going to fly in as well and almost get sniped down. A very quick Hive on the way for Bly. We're going to see a Spire, or is it like really fast? It could be Vipers, potentially. Like Vipers, maybe? I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be something interesting and weird. Bly is only at 58 workers. He's only got a few Roaches. Spire goes down.
Spire.
Yeah, it's going to be low economy Broodlords. This is one of Bly's favorite things to do ever since the Heart of the Swarm days.
Yeah, and very interestingly enough, it's actually 4 barracks, just now 2 nearing completion as well. So you would think it would be mech coming out from SpeCial, but it is going to be bio. We see the double engineering base, STEM as well. So I wonder if that is, I mean, I guess the Marine count kind of tells Bly that it is going to be bio, but otherwise it's kind of a little bit different, right? It was Hellions and 2 Cyclones into tanks, now bio.
I think bio as well is a little bit more dangerous. Like if you catch a mech player and they're just not expecting such fast Broodlords, you can kind of get in there and they're like, well, I have 12 siege tanks, a Thor and a Viking. And you're like, well, I have 8 Broodlords. Like your army's slow, you can't really counterattack. If a bio player is not ready, they can very quickly evacuate from a situation and then just like start dropping, counterattacking. And that, of course, abuses the immobility of the Broodlords. That's something which Bly will have trouble dealing with. So I think definitely SpeCial is wanting to get wind of what's going on right now.
Ultra Cavern as well, because why not, I guess?
Yeah, I guess why not have the variety of both and just kind of get the armor upgrades to start out. You know, if +2 armor gets up for SpeCial, the bio is actually going to be pretty good at defending, say, Broodlings from the Broodlords because they're just not going to have any melee upgrades. So that's something where these aren't going to be like the super beefed up 3/3 Broodlords that are like the scary ones. These are kind of like budget Broodlords. Like they hit faster, they're still scary, they still make siege tanks deal friendly fire, but they're just not going to deal as much straight up damage.
I almost wonder how much he's committing into it. I mean, so far we're not seeing any Corruptors coming out. He has taken and saturated the 4th base. He's going on to the 5th base here as well. Banshee does die.
Good fungal at the last.
I do want to get a shot of this, though, from our lovely observer, Insano. If you can go to the natural and look at this Overlord that is, at least last I saw, still there. That fungal, though.
Fungal. Doesn't quite finish them all.
No, he actually killed it now. But there was an Overlord overlooking that whole thing. So when I was like, does he know? Of course he knew. He had fantastic information for a long time there.
Oh, and a second Evo and 77 workers. Bly Bly doing the craziest thing a cheesy player could do. He is going for a full macro game. He's gone into ultras. He's got 1 or 2 infestors still out. He's going for a 5th base. I have never seen Bly spread so much creep, focus so much on the economy. And this is exactly what SpeCial is not expecting.
It's maybe that snoot advice that he got just before. These Marines still being so brave. They're a single fungal away from being just in a lot of trouble. He's going to get a queen, 2 queens for himself, a couple of creep tumors as well. Loads up. Gets out.
Drop in the main base at the same time. This is where SpeCial is in his element. Bly's multitasking, going to be pressed. He doesn't have Mutalisks. He does not have a lot of mobile anti-air, especially after losing those queens. These drops are going to be a nightmare. Even going to take down the +1 melee upgrade. Ooh, nice defense there. Bly going to save that one. 4th, 5th base actually is in trouble though.
I do like the infestors coming out to kind of support this composition. With the spotting of the ultras, by the way, he's now seeing what it is he is facing. Oh, not quite there, but almost. And he handled this. You know, the multitask we were talking about, it was a little bit rough, but all said and done, he preserves the Evo chamber. He's okay.
And he's going into Corruptors. In the past, I've seen Bly slowly get picked apart by this, like Liberators come in on the next step and start harassing. But he's adding on that mobile anti-air. He's rebuilt a lot of these queens. They're getting a lot of damage on the medevacs. If SpeCial overextends here, he might just be throwing away a lot of bio units.
Infestors, not quite sure they want to do it just yet, but one of the medevacs does die there as well. These two on their last legs. And to your point, Pig, if he loses all 3 or 4 of these medevacs, it gets to be a real issue. He's especially his max, so of course you do want to eventually be trading these out, but trade, not lose.
Oh, these red hit point medevacs will be going down. SpeCial going to see if he can get a few drones before that happens. The Ultralisk's not too smart. He's staring at the purple tree, thinking about life and stuff. Finally does decide to get on top of that.
Okay, I'll go clean it up.
They really need to be told specifically what to do. Otherwise, they will just chill out usually. But a bit of multi-prong still. SpeCial. He's like, you know what? I got a ton of siege tanks. 2-2 is about to finish. This is where the Terran is happy to fight.
And fight he will. He's got a few Marauders in there, but just a few actually, not that many. Bly is respecting the angle of this approach. He really wants to get these last couple of units out. His 5th base looks to be in danger of going down. He's actually going to evacuate it and just back away. A couple of spine crawlers over here does mean that I don't think there's a whole lot of solvency for that push to get in there. But look at Bly being patient.
Yeah, he's waiting for those Broodlords. He's got 3 Broodlords now, 6 on the way. Once they're out, the siege tanks aren't going to be useful. He knows these siege tanks have enough firepower to take down his small Ultralisk count. But if he can get rid of them with the Broods, that'll be great. SpeCial is not going to give him time, though. SpeCial's just going to dive on the 4th base.
Yeah, look at Bly's really backing up here. And he's just down to the 3 bases. Now he's going to go for it. The Fungal's on top of most of that Terran army, but he backs away again, trying to get up to that 6 Broodlord count that you were talking about, Pig. And with that, it looks like SpeCial is going to be like, okay, I guess I'll cleanly kill 2 bases, back up and recalibrate. So we're seeing Vikings come out as an answer to those Broodlords.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of damage, to put it lightly. SpeCial there, finding a window, and I think maybe Bly could have engaged the army. Like, it was mostly Marines, and especially if he catches, say, half the tanks while they're moving, I think he could have jumped on that. But Bly, really over-respecting SpeCial's army, gives up 2 bases. Wow. He does preserve his own army, though. Bly is still maxed. He's got a big army supply lead. His upgrades are steadily catching up with the 2-3 on the way. He's kind of replacing the infestors. He's replacing the creep. This is not characteristic Bly play. In the past, we see Bly say, okay, I've got to counterattack you with the Broodlords. I got to kill you right now. Instead, he's doing all of the long-term things like rebuilding the economy, getting the map control back, and even just doing very small counterattacks.
It has been nice. I will say, though, SpeCial's actually already switched over to Ghost. We saw 5 being made at a time there. Ghost, Viking, additional starports coming down. I think SpeCial, kind of off the back of only 4 bases, but now pushing towards a 5th, is really adjusting for that late game, and he's very strong there.
Yeah, the Viking's going to be very good taking down the Broodlords. My one, fear is that he overcommits to the Vikings a little bit and kind of gets rolled on the ground battle. That's the real danger of Bly's composition. A lot of Zerglings, a lot of Infestors, a lot of Ultras. You get the right Fungals, you catch the tanks on siege, you can roll over this very quickly.
Try to avoid that scenario. Pushing forward here is going to try to push back a little bit of that creep. Bit of a whiff on the Fungal there, and wow, Bly's just going to go for it. All that hesitancy earlier is gone. He's going to back away. Some Corrosive Bile does connect there, but the Ghost getting their snipe action in as well.
2 Ultras fall instantly. A couple of Broodlord friendly fire shots going down. SpeCial going to pull back for now. Of course, is going to create a bit of an arc. He's actually just thinking about man-moding this fight, and I don't know if that's the right way to go about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's mostly siege tanks. There are a few Marines and Marauders, but I do think Bly, with that big army supply, with his upgrades catching up, if he can just get a fight kind of on creep in the open, Bly's very happy to take that.
Yeah, just a couple of fungals even, just kind of slowing down that force and keeping it all piled up on top of each other. Could be really, really bad. We're going to have some nukes coming out here from SpeCial as well, really gearing up for that late game.
I'd like to see a flank here. I don't want to see Bly just headbutt through that choke point. I think he's realizing now, but it's a bit slow in the setup. I think he should have preempted this situation. You can see his army's kind of stuck. He's waiting for the Broodlords, but I don't think he has the anti-air to deal with this Viking count. And Bly, his army, his ground army's not able to engage, but the Broodlords all just disappear.
Yeah, he's just kind of sitting up there, now going to come in this kind of haphazard both ways, going around the long distance. He very well could end up killing this army, but it's going to come at a tremendous cost. And the Vikings still do remain supreme. And it's not like Bly didn't invest in the air. And there it is. The last of the Broodlords are going to go down. So they trade out armies, but SpeCial gets a little bit of position with it, and it looked kind of good for him.
Yeah, I mean, SpeCial trying to do a bit of a ballsy drop there. I don't know if that's the right call. Definitely he's going to have to pull back to his planetary fortress. He's got to pick up those ghosts and get them out of there. A lot of Zerglings coming out. Bly still has quite a frightening army here. More ghosts coming through, though, and Bly, you don't want to go through that choke point.
Yeah, Ultras are so big, and as you said earlier, kind of dumb and want to stare at purple trees, so getting inside and killing that planetary, not the best thing, especially going to, of course, shave off some army and go for the drop. Just positionally, I really like SpeCial's position right now. He's taken and secured that 6 o'clock, whereas Bly is kind of, he's fallen back, he's tunnel vision into his 5 base with his main, natural, and third kind of drying up here.
Yeah, equal base is always good for the non-Zerg player. And with the drops resuming now, it's going to be tough for Bly. You know, does he want to invest in Broodlords again? If he does, he's not going to have a lot of mobile anti-air. The drone loss is so big on this base. No worker pool whatsoever. A very slow reaction from Bly.
Yeah, it's going to cost him 16 drones and some positioning. Here comes that force to finish off that hatchery. The third base does die at this point in time. And with kind of a lack of tech and Bly starving here for money, we're not seeing the return. There's no fungal and cleaning up of the medevacs. There's no threat of pushing back. At this point in time, Bly's best bet is to kind of slow the game down and get up a super army, but he just lost his super army, Pig.
Yeah, with that 5th base taking so many worker losses, he's trying to rebuild his drones, but he's stuck down 50 supply. As you said, it's not an easy army to replace. I mean, if you're at 90 or 100 drones, yeah, you could maybe play a wasteful style, but otherwise, Broodlords, Ultras, Infestors, these units never come at a discount. They are so expensive.
And I love how behind all this movement, by the way, SpeCial is moving on to secure even another base as well. So he's drying up on bases, but replacing it with a fresh new one as he goes, and he's aggroing in the middle of the map as well. He's slammed the door, and at this point in time, he's kind of yelling at Bly from the other side of it. I don't see what Bly can do.
I think this is the right way to play here from SpeCial. You know, he's not coming out. Finally, Bly is going to try and fight for control over this middle area, but the snipes, the tanks, the liberators all dishing out so much damage. And while it looks like the siege tanks will fall, so will all of the Ultralisks, so will all of the Queens. The Vikings reign supreme, the Overseers are all going to fall, and SpeCial with the bank to back it up, with the production to back it up. Bly is broke. He's out of money, and he's out of luck in this game.
Yeah, you can just see in that production tab just a few more Ultras coming out to join up with a couple of Infestors, but just simply is not enough. The Vikings going to continue to destroy these Overseers. That nuke could very well land just as kind of the last insult to injury here.
Oh, those drones!
And it does.
Ouch. And the Ghost just kind of running circles around that Ultralisk. The Vikings going to land the ultimate ground combat unit, as we know from the Heart of the Swarm trailer. These ones a little bit smarter. They must have watched that video. They saw that you wait till the Ultralisk is gone, then you land. And,
or there's not one Viking, but like 10. That's the other part of it too, huh?
10 Vikings versus 1 hatchery. Yeah, a little bit of a fairer fight.
So Bly, again, as we said earlier, kind of coming to grips with this. He had a great game plan, but the maneuverability of SpeCial and just his overall map presence is enough to seal the deal from map number 2 here as SpeCial goes up 2-0.
A very good win there for SpeCial. You were talking earlier about how Bly is normally taking these other players into situations they're not familiar with, but this was SpeCial in his playground. He's so comfortable in that sort of game. He's like, okay, we're just, you know, once the Nidus was over, he's like, back to my normal game plan. Yeah. We converge into that like 3-base Terran. I drop a little bit. Hey, I maxed out with 2-2 biotank. I'm going to push forwards, and I got to say, I think Bly did miss an opportunity. You know, we both talked about it. I think he could have jumped on that army with the Ultralisks and the Infestors. Losing the 4th and the 5th, I think just a little bit too much economic damage to recover from.
Well, it's tough because if not could have, then maybe should have, I think is part of it. He just gave up too much. And of course, by the way, we see everything. It's very much so easy for us to sit in this chair and kind of make that choice. It's so hard for those guys. I just have to kind of give that nod to them. But in retrospect, you live and die by that sword. Sometimes when you do hold back, those 6 Broodlords really tip the tide in your favor, and that's, you know, you lose the 2 bases, but you win the game. That's fine. But in some situations like this, you just give a little bit too much, and you don't know it till it's too late. And you're like, gosh, that was too much map control over to the Terran player.
That's why we talk about Star Sense in this game. It's your ability to figure out what's going on, or to intuitively almost figure out kind of an idea of what you should be doing, and finding that correct response with limited information is one of the hardest aspects of StarCraft. You only see your corner of the map. You've got to make a lot of assumptions and guesses. You've got to just kind of play the best hands you can with a, you know, an incomplete information of the whole setting. But SpeCial here, he's a master of that, you know, kind of very measured scouting, poking and prodding, going for many small moves to gain advantages. Whereas Bly there, he was hoping to get the damage done with the Nidus, wasn't able to find it.
I think SpeCial's having a more difficult time with the water bottle right now than he is with Bly.
You spend enough time in Korea and you pick up a few habits there. I know you're a fan of the Korean water bottle technique.
We could make a montage video. That would be really, really nice. So a little bit of a break here, guys. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in. It's been a long, awesome day, but we're really proud of WCS and where it's taking these players, and we couldn't do it without everybody at home watching as well. So thank you guys for watching and talking about it in your various threads and on Twitter and whatnot. These guys are bearing their souls. It's tough. It's tough for Bly.
Yeah.
He's out here wanting this. I mean, a round of 16 is a really good finish for him. One of the coolest stats I've seen this entire time is we saw he's played over 9,000 tournament games. That's not a few. So he wants this real bad, but he might have hit the brick wall. SpeCial is just one of those really, really, for lack of a better word, special players.
Absolutely. I mean, he's the go for SC2 king. I don't know if Bly's missed more than like 2 of those tournaments in the 8 years it's been running. Like every Sunday he's there, every Thursday he's there playing those tournaments. Every now and then we see Bly decide to compete in some of these Chinese run tournaments on the Korean server. And he like sometimes wins these online cups against Korean players. And you're like, what? He's such an online king. He is so good and you know, somewhat hot and cold because of the styles of strategies where he does take these risks. He plays these kind of surprising builds and these aggressive builds. It is based off catching your opponent off guard. It's based off kind of playing with their lack of information and tricking them. But so far this series, he hasn't really been able to pull the wool over SpeCial's eyes at all.
Speaking of Korean players too, SpeCial kind of molds himself after that Korean scene where some of the best, I mean, not even some, just the best Terran players we've ever seen in StarCraft have all come from. So it's kind of fun seeing the different backgrounds from these guys. Pig talks a lot about how Bly has just put himself through the fires of just sheer number of games, and that's allowed him to kind of distill some of these crazy strategies that will get you the win. Whereas SpeCial's traveled to Korea from Mexico and around the world since the MLG days and competed with some of the best players and picked up on what it takes to win in that way as well. Very different backgrounds, but a lot of good results for these guys.
Yep, SpeCial. He's become so focused in the last few years, really started to pull it together as a player. Someone we kind of have been talking about in the lead up to this tournament saying, who can stop Serral? SpeCial's name keeps coming up on that analysis desk.
Yeah.
He's kind of that guy who even last year had a lot of run-ins with Neeb, where his runs were stopped short by the eventual champion of the tournament. But this time he's got another opportunity to write a new story in WCS history.
Well, looks like we're about to get underway, guys, with game number 3 here as we head to Dreamcatcher. And in the top left-hand side from the Ukraine, it's our Blue Zerg, Bly.
And down here in the bottom right-hand side, the Mexican Terran player, a hero practicing over there in Korea all day, all night, honing his skills. In the red, he is SpeCial.
It's kind of funny, we're getting into some interesting territory just to kind of give you guys an idea of the mind games that could go on. We do get a gold base here for Bly to start up the weird stuff, but Special is so dominantly up 2-0 here. He knows he has a laser next. The laser beat him earlier in this tournament, and they have a bit of a rivalry. So now you're in that kind of funny territory where you're like, you know, I've got a couple strategies. You know this guy has the proxy barracks or something that he wants to bust out.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't yet. I mean, A, it's Bly, so it can get weird. But B, maybe you're already thinking about that next match. Now, I know that's sacrilegious, Pig, but maybe he is.
Definitely could be on his mind, but definitely gonna have to keep things focused and together. He's SDV scouted consistently in this series. And with this gold-based expansion, there's a few very interesting ways you can play it out. It is close to the Terran base, so you can kind of do some sort of roach pushes from it, that sort of thing. With a second gas starting up, that seems like it's going to be the plan. It's going to be a slightly delayed proxy Ravager push, not really meant to all in, but preferably Bly wants this to play out in a way where he busts the natural, or special even just chooses now, upon seeing no expansion, to evacuate up his ramp. And all Bly wants to do is kind of like force a lot of defense, contain him for a while, probably not going to commit so much as to break him. You can see there's no Zergling speed, so, you know, he's probably only going to invest in 4 or 5 Ravagers. I say that, but
yeah,
who knows?
Bly.
He's Bly. He might just build 10, 12, 15, and just keep kind of rallying. Definitely going to look for that. Special aware of what's happening, though, so I really want Bly to stay flexible, put on light pressure, macro into a normal natural expansion behind it, and play just a very odd follow-up.
You know, Specialist going to go with that bunker. His Reaper not concerned with figuring out if it is a gold base or not. He pretty much just absolutely knows that it is.
Yeah.
Going to rush out a tank here, too, because I think, to your point, one of the catch-all answers for all of that would be a tank. Now, that's a fast layer. So we were predicting Ravagers. Is it just going to be straight up Nidus to kind of circumvent all that defense you talked about?
I think he might just get roach speed and like macro, and he's like going to build like 2 or 3 roaches, like really light pressure maybe, especially if he spotted this bunker with his Overlord, which Bly may have seen, I'm not sure. He's actually like just going to do very light kind of defensive pressure. He's droning. Maybe just do a, macro roach play and, like, you know, hope for some overreaction from Special. But since Special is keeping the natural up, that's a good little start. Get the second bunker going. This is, like, not bad. Bly can always morph that into a Ravager and just get its hit points back.
More drones, another hatch. So, Pig, so far I think you are pretty darn close to being correct.
It's a good way to play it. You know, you can't underestimate this is Special. I think every Terran player watching right now is like, oh yeah, sometimes I think they're just pressuring, and I, like, you know, I have a bunker with 2 Marines in it, and I go back to building SCVs and mining, and then, you know, 6 Ravagers bust in and you just lose the game. But Special now, I think he's getting wind of it. His Reaper's gone across the map. The Cyclone goes out and starts to clear up the roaches. He's going to spot this hatchery, and this is where he knows exactly what he's up against.
Yeah, I mean, I had to catch myself because, like, he knows exactly what he's up against, but then it's Bly. So it's like, I know what it's supposed to look like. And so far, you're right. It is macro speed, but that's what I'm talking about. The Spire after he scouts it.
Yeah.
Can we get a click on the Spire? Because I'd be surprised if it's in the main even.
I was about to say, if you think about it, though, it's like, you're absolutely right, Jeff. Like, he could go for Swarmhost or Nidus Swarm or Mutalisk. Oh, okay, it's going to be Mutalisks. Okay,
Whatever you don't think it is.
Exactly, and that's the danger of Bly. A lot of the time, we're talking about this whole working with lack of information. You've got to make a lot of assumptions about, okay, my opponent's probably going to do this, and because they've got that, they'll probably do this. That is a 6 around. Oh my lord, the Cyclone gets no kills there.
That was massive. Go ahead and finish your point, though. You were...
So basically it's this idea of you're working with limited information.
Wow.
And there are certain moves which are not technically the best thing.
Right.
People don't do them much. You just discount it. You say, that's not even going to happen. No one does that. And that's exactly why Mutas off the back of Roaches off a gold base, it can work so well. The one tell here is the fact that there's double gases on this base, and that may tip Special off if he's really got his thinking hat on.
But it's going to be hard. He's seeing roaches right here. He lost the Reaper. He lost the Cyclone, so his ability to kind of scout what it is diminished. A lot of Terran players are really reticent to do that scan, especially after they lose units, which is kind of funny because that is the time to do that, but it compounds on your losses already.
Yeah, exactly.
So these units could just show up and they could just end the game.
Yeah, it's actually crazy because there's no turrets. Yeah, there's double engineering bays going down for upgrades, but there's nothing in position to scout, right? There's no drop, there's no Hellions out there, there's just a safety Banshee. These roaches, kind of just created a little bit of threat, right? They're kind of like, hey, watch out. I could come at you with some roaches. And look, he's so focused on the front right now. So it's going to be on Bly to find some momentum. He's down in workers, but if he can roll into the mineral line, kill a bunch of SCVs, fly around, and he's droning behind it, and then go into like maybe 60 drones, mass roach Ravager, and a bit later when SpeCial moves out to take his third, that's when you pounce with the follow-up push.
And here we go. The 9 mutas show up. There are some Marines here. Stim not too far off from finishing, but greedily enough, SpeCial does not have any missile turrets at all, so at least missed mining time from the main base, but some SCVs will die here as well.
Good focus fire by Bly. Does take down these Marines on the left. He realizes there's no stim, no shields. One Mutalist falls. A second Mutalist barely pulls back in time. These Mutas actually just engaging these Marines. Very ballsy. I feel like he should go back to hitting the workers here.
Yeah.
He is going to do that. You want to maintain this Muta count and keep the threat. Those Marines were actually hitting the reactor. SpeCial actually shot his own reactor for 200 hit points.
And you said behind this is the roaches, so it's going to be that kind of almost ZvZ style of back and forth. Like once you adjust to the mutas, well, here come a gigantic number of roaches.
Oh my lord, he doesn't even have an Evo chamber. He's like, nah, just 49 drones, mass roaches with roach speed. This is as surprisingly all in as you could go. This is reminiscent of my ladder sessions, Jeff. This is not something you expect to see in a WCS tournament. If someone say, I could build a round of drones and hit a strong attack, or I could hit an even stronger attack. And that's exactly what Bly is going for. Mass roach Ravager already on the field and pulling together for an attack.
Yeah, and SpeCial's actually at the base of that ramp with his tanks, which is going to be what it would take to defend against this attack, but they're in a bad position. And you can kind of just look at that mini-map. Like, we're seeing a little bit of a ring around the rosy with the mutas, but the real action is that gigantic crawling swarm of this.
Combat shields is not done yet. There's Marines in the main worried about the mutas. There's Marines at the third. He's split up. His SCV goes out and scouts it. SpeCial realizing there was a threat of this, but his tanks are so clumped. The Bile's in the middle of the triple siege tank. Oh no! SpeCial is in huge trouble right now, but the stim comes down. He's got the 1-1 upgrades. The Marines focus firing the roaches and Ravagers. Even though the tanks went down, does SpeCial just have the macro to hold on?
Holy cow. I mean, the army advantage is slightly in favor of Bly, but if he can't capitalize off of that, the economy is actually somehow in favor of SpeCial with more workers here.
That's insane.
And the gold base, by the way, was the quote-unquote natural, so it doesn't have that much longer to live. It's pretty okay, but just kind of keep your eye on it. They dry up really quick.
With only 46 drones, you know, this is something where he needs to get rid of that third base. This was not I've got 60 drones, I can do a bit of damage, kill some siege tanks and bounce back. Bly needed to do more damage than that. This next attack is really his last chance because combat shields is about to finish. If he managed to wreck the Roach Ravager that hard with non-shield Marines, imagine what happens now those shields are done.
Yeah, the shields are done. The medevac count is still really high. There's a couple of tanks here. The mutas are just a distraction. Carnifex are not going to do much here for you. And when you spot the queens like that, by the way, you've never been more sure this attack isn't all in. And here we go. The Roach is going to try to jump on this, but he's immediately repelled. SpeCial pulls the SCVs. The supply differential is still in favor of Bly, but it's all army. He scans his lack of saturation, and he knows he just has to hold to win.
You see that drone count especially, just so happy right now. He pulled those workers saying, I've just got to hang on. Even if I lose all the workers on my third, I think I'm okay. And then the attack kind of just had to fall away before the workers even got there. And I think SpeCial now realizes, okay, deep breathe, deep kind of, you know, breath there. Sigh of relief kind of comes out of him because he's up on 3 bases. He's got a big army, and now it's his turn to be the aggressor.
And be the aggressor he will, but also keep in mind, as long as he doesn't let the Corrosive Biles nail him, there's no anti-air here. What few queens we did see were out on the attack, and now 24, 25 drones have died. He's down to 36. He didn't have that many to begin with, and SpeCial just has to hold on, and if he can poke out and do some aggression, more power to you. Now, on the Zerg side, we do have tunneling claws, and that's got to be his way back in. But look at that building right there. The guy's spinning in the middle. That missile turret, that's going to be the spoiler.
I mean, tunneling claws, it's one of these moves which is very desperate. If you've already gone mutas in that game, There's turrets everywhere.
Yeah.
There's going to be detection everywhere. It's definitely something that can ambush the
Oh,
army.
you can, the army.
But oh man, I mean, you need an economy. You need something. Back at home, there's a huge army. The last bits of economy getting massacred there. SCV's pre-pulled. Special knows he needs to hold this one last desperate attack. If he can defend this, he will win the game. Strategically placed depots, choking up the roaches, and Special crushes that series.
Well, this has been a bloody Saturday, I'll tell you what. There's been about 50% of people very happy and 50% of people that got smoked. Special right here, though, put on a clinic. Really good plays, scouting out the information and reading all the different things that Bly threw at him and reacted accordingly. Brilliant play.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful play there. I mean, Bly had the transitions. He caught those 3 siege tanks. That was about as good as that could go at that stage. But Special was just too strong today. Representing Mexico with pride, representing all of the Terran fans out there as well, and looking forward to making it to those quarterfinals tomorrow.
Yeah, he's the last non-European. We want to hear from him. He's had a great series here. He's on the stage with Smix right now.
Thank you very much, In Control. Congratulations, Special. Another 3-0 for us here in Austin today. It's just a magical day of domination from so many players. So, first of all, how does it feel to move on to the quarterfinals yet again this year?
It feels great. I've been practicing a lot in Korea, so I was a little bit nervous because I lost already once here. So, but I don't know. It went everything as planned, so it's okay.
And earlier today with Neat being knocked out, that means you are the only NA player left here in Austin. That is pretty special. Do you feel, pun not intended. Do you feel any extra pressure on your shoulders now to carry that NA flag forward?
Not really. I'm always just trying to play my best regardless of where I play, but I will try to do, try to get to the final because Nib lost.
And I was just talking to you briefly before this interview came over to us, and you were saying that out of all the maps, the second one was maybe the most difficult for you against Bly. So can you elaborate a little bit more on why that was the case?
Because my Nidus defense wasn't that strong. I should have defended a little bit better. And I was a little bit behind, but so we went to a longer game. So, but I'm confident in the long game, so that's why I'm okay being behind when I know I can win the long game.
Yeah, there's no doubt your late game is very, very strong. And now moving forward, you're going to be playing a Laser. You played him yesterday, actually, in the group stage where he took you down 2-0. Earlier, when I spoke to him, he said that he felt that a little bit of luck was on his side in that match. Do you agree? What happened there?
I don't believe in luck. I think he just played better that time, but I can win.
Sounds good, Special. Thank you very much. Best of luck tomorrow in that quarterfinal match, Nathanias. Let's head back to you to wrap up day number 2 here at the World Championship Series.
Thank you very much, Smix, and a big congratulations to Special as he rounds out our top 8. I mean, his play in this series was perfect. The control, the use of the Ghost, the Liberators, defending the Nidus, the crowd was blown away. It was amazing.
And it was really, really awesome to see that kind of play from Special. I know a lot of people were expecting it. A lot of people were saying, hey, you know, Special is pretty heavily favored here. Bly did all of his shenanigans. He tried the things. He tried taking a gold base, tried doing the surprise mutas, tried the Nidus worms. Everything he threw out, Special was able to pick up, defend, and then turn it into that standard solid win.
Yeah, pretty typical Bly series, I think, indeed, with the gold bases. And even the game on Lost and Found, it starts out with Nidus attacks, and then you look at the 10-minute mark, and there's Ultras and Brootlords. It's like, didn't this have a Nidus? Like, how is this a 10-minute Brootlord Ultra game at this point? But I think Special played very smart, especially that first game, you know, going straight into all those Marines as well, just playing a very defensive game at first. And even when he took a lot of damage, knowing that he would have the tech advantage, countering with those drops. I like the way that he approached this series. He just had a very good approach to it. He's obviously no stranger to Bly, and you don't want to play. I felt a little bit risky in Lost and Found when he suicided the Hellions, but in the end, he still handled that Nidus pretty well. So solid, well-deserved victory, I'd say.
I liked it how esports legend DeMuslim put it on Twitter. He brought up how the focus on building Marines instead of Hellions in the beginning of that game just gives him that utility to swap around, have multiple bunkers filled in his base to defend against the Nidus. Because I was like, oh yeah, most people, you try to rush that down, but he was he was ready in a way that he didn't have to suicide all of his workers into it to kill it either.
A lot of these builds from Bly are obviously designed to go up against the very standard meta. That's what he practices, and then he tries to find the right angle to engage that meta. But the moment that players then start to counter Bly's approach to the meta, that's where things get a little bit awkward. And you saw SpeCial in the interview as well saying that as long as these games go longer, I'm pretty confident. And you can't blame him. I think when it comes to Ghost and Liberators, I mean, in the foreign scene, I think there is no one else. That's truly where SpeCial shines. So he knows that if it would ever get to a 4 or 5 base scenario, he's golden anyway.
Yeah, and he played very well when it did get to that 4 to 5 base scenario. We do have the bracket updated for you, ladies and gentlemen. Our top 8 here at the World Championship Series Austin. SpeCial, Hero Marine, Lambo, Nurchio, Mana, Snuda, Laser, and SpeCial. 2 Terrans, 1 Protoss, and a bunch of Zerg for them to cut through if they want to make it to that final. Of course, all eyes have been on SpeCial since the start of this tournament. We've hyped him up. We've talked about him being the guy to beat. Do we still agree?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That has not changed, but I must say, I think it's a rather surprising top 8. Obviously, not everyone is surprising. Sero is not a shock. I think Hero Marine, you could make a very valid case for in the beginning of this tournament. Elaser and SpeCial kind of deserve to be there. But the other guys, I think a lot of people would have predicted Neep, obviously.
Yeah.
Showtime, maybe one of the Dutchies, Uthermal or Harston, maybe one of the Swedish Zergs. So I think this is a rather surprising top 8. And I truly hope that means fireworks tomorrow.
Yeah, very excited to see who makes it out of the bottom side of that bracket, especially. We do have the schedule ready for you, for those of you curious as to what is going to be happening. Well, we're going down the bracket. We're going to have SpeCial versus Hero Marine, Lambo versus Nurchio, Mana, Snoot, and a Laser SpeCial, crushing our way down that bracket, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, and of course that SpeCial versus Hero Marine is going to be a rematch from WCS EU Challenger in the semifinals, where Hero Marine was the only player that actually was able to take that game off of SpeCial. I know we've brought that up multiple times, and he seems like he's playing fairly well today and yesterday, so looking forward to seeing how that goes.
I mean, SpeCial Elaser is also a rematch of the global finals last year.
Yeah.
And then you've got Lambo and Nurchio, who have an interesting rivalry where Lambo, once upon a time, a couple of years ago, won a series, and then Nurchio won 14 in a row. So plenty of stories to go into tomorrow.
Can he turn everything around?
And you know how it often goes with StarCraft tournaments as well, Nate. Like, if the first day is sick and we have a lot of very close series, we build up all this hype and expectation, and then the final day has a lot of one-sided series. So far, we had a lot of dominant performances from these players, but I think that means that tomorrow is going to be very close and contested. All these guys, they seem to be on fire. We've got veterans, we got people making their first appearance in the quarterfinals. I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, should be great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That is it here for day 2 of the World Championship Series Austin. Tomorrow, we crown a champion. Will it be a new one, or will SpeCial return to take the throne once again? Find out with us. We'll see you then.